Well, yesterday I had the wonderful opportunity of speaking in a corporate setting to a national charitable organisation that have been serving our community for 60 years plus. I entitled this message, The Power of a Seed. Now, hey, I'm asking you if you would press that like, thumbs up, and the subscribe button so that YouTube will see this, see that it's important, and lay it on other platforms. So God bless you, and I trust that this, the power of a seed, will be a seed that will rest in your heart for a long time to come. Ever considered the power of a seed? No, it's not about farming, it's okay. But a farmer understands the power of a seed, don't they? What they do is they plant it today, they get a harvest later on. Anybody lived on a farm? None of you? One over here. You'll understand that you had to plant a seed. And then sometime in the future, you got a harvest. And there are all kinds of seeds. And this is what I wanted to bring to you today, that won't only touch you today, do something in you. This is what I've learned about speaking to people, that it's not what happens to you, it's what happens through you. And I've got to get something through you. And the wealth or the value of what I've got to say today will be whether I get invited back in the future. So we'll see. Different seeds. Investment. We all understand investing. Investing perhaps in money, in friends, in family, in good health. Investing in our future, leaving a legacy for those we may never meet. The power of a seed. So I'd like your attention. Short time, it's going to give you a lot of conversation at the table when I'm done. And of course, if you want to have a good life tomorrow, I've learned this. You've got to plant a seed today. You know that well. Don't plant the seed, you don't get the harvest, all right? And a seed, I'd like you to remember this. If you're taking notes, a seed is the only evidence that you're expecting something from your future. Doesn't matter, who I guess we're all over the voting age here a little, and just a little bit. and we've all learned that there's a lot of talk in this world, a lot of ego, a lot of stuff, and you end up becoming jaded by the people around about you or the system, particularly now, during COVID. I walked out there, the lady bounced to me almost straight away, said, "Where's your mask?" There's something that you've got to attend to. And what I would suggest to you, something I'm learning and have learned and continue to learn, is that the one person I'm going to keep on working on is me, because I affect other people. I affect my wife, my children, my friends. And, this seed, understanding this seed mentality can change your finances, can change what you're doing here. And I hope that perhaps as we're talking, we might actually get to know each other a little and become friends. Chinese bamboo tree, an amazing story. Ever heard of the Chinese bamboo tree? It sits in the ground for 5 years. 5 years, you don't see anything. You plant it today, you don't see anything for 5 years. Imagine you've planted a Chinese bamboo tree. 3 years later, your friends walk by. You got yourself a Chinese bamboo tree, don't you? Yeah. Well, you got to water that thing, haven't you? You got to keep it. You got to water it. You got to keep the sun on it. You got to keep, even though you can't see it, you can't see the seed. One way to kill it is to lift it up and have a good look to see if it's still there. But it sits in the ground for 5 years. And then in 5 weeks, it breaks through the ground, and in 5 weeks, it grows 90 feet tall. Extraordinary. Some people are in their 5 weeks. Some people are in their 5 years. I wonder where you are. Whether you're in your 5 years, perhaps it's family, perhaps it's children, perhaps it's wife, husband, well, not wives here perhaps, but husband, or, friends, family, neighbours. Maybe you have a small business, maybe it's this organisation, where perhaps You've built so far and you've got a vision, you've got a goal, but you're in your 5 years and you're thinking, dear goodness, are we ever going to get anywhere? Because I've been working that thing. Am I talking to the right people? Where you've been working at something and you're just not seeing the fruit, you're not seeing the harvest. Well, you're in your 5 years. I'm going to talk to you more about this seed mentality, because without it, you'll never get anything done, because it's not what happens to you, it's what happens through you, what happens in you. I was talking to the little girl at the IGA store the other day with the mask on, and she said, I can't see you smile today. I said, oh? And she said, I look forward to seeing you because you always smile, you leave something with me. And I said, well, thank you. Just that short little interaction. And I learned something that I left for that girl, just walking in there and being happy and having a smile, made for her that moment. And so I took it off, much to the aggro of a few people around about me, gave her a big smile. And she said, thank you so much. The power of this. I want to tell you this. Remember these words. The seed that leaves your hand never leaves your life, but it enters your future where it multiplies. Good, bad or ugly, good, bad or indifferent. You plant a seed today. Who knows? We live with the fruits of what we did yesterday. How true it is. And I think we're living in a season of compromise where people want to blame somebody else. Look at the 6 o'clock news tonight. They'll say good evening and then they'll tell you why it's not. And the truth is then they'll be blaming somebody. And people are looking for someone to blame. They'll change their clothes, they'll change their job, they'll change their church, they'll change their friends, but they won't look at themselves. The fact is we're living with the effects of the decisions and the seeds that we planted yesterday. I want to give you another saying that I've used now for over 20 years, and that is to do something you've never done before, to get something you never had before. And as you did warmly greet me this morning and encourage me and said I was old, that's great. I appreciated that, because you're never too old. Don't. I think you said something like, I'm glad you're old. That's great. To do something you... Here, get these words. Do something you've never done before, and you'll get something you never had before. I was doing a radio program in New Zealand for many years. They would patch me through by phone. In fact, one of my claims to fame over there was I was the voice of New Zealand, even though I'm an Australian. And I remember this Kiwi ringing me up saying, so what do you think of those Aussies? And I said, oh, well, they're okay. I think they're all right. But I was doing a program with a gentleman by the name of Mike Baker. He was actually the voice of New Zealand, and I joined him in that, a bit of a duo. He's very well known. In fact, he was a radio announcer since he was in his early 20s. And I met him when he was around about 57, 58, and we did a program together for years. And so I knew a lot of people. When I would go there, in fact, I remember this one fellow said, I know you. And I said, I don't think you do. He said, I know your voice. I don't know your face, but I know your voice. And so we did this program. It was a lot of fun. And Mike said to me one day, he said, I'm 65 now. In radio, that's been a long career. He said, it's amazing they don't throw me out. And I said, they wouldn't throw you out, Mike, because you're loved. You all know John Laws, right? He was the equivalent of John Laws in New Zealand. And I said, there's no way they would ever throw you out, Mike. And we're doing a program one day, and I was doing some motivational teaching is what I like to do. Because here's what I know about motivation. It's like bathing. It doesn't last. But if you don't do it every day, you'll stink. And, you gotta motivate yourself. So we're doing this program one day, and just off the cuff, I said to him, Mike, when was the last time you did something for the first time? Now, if you know anything about radio, 3 seconds is a long time. People flick the channel over. Well, more than 3 seconds went by, and I went, Mike, are you there? He said, whoa. I went, whoa, what? He said, as my listeners all know, I got some age on me and I haven't done anything for the first time since I was in my early 20s. He said, you just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, well, let's keep talking to the audience. He said, I want to talk to you after the show. So he did. He said, why did you go and do that to me? He said, I don't know if I'm happy or miserable. He said, I felt like I've just gone and spent the last 40 years wasting my time doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, never having done something new, happy and content with what I was just doing. But now I know why. I've been discontented because something in me said there's something more. I said, when do you want to get out of radio? He said, no, I don't. But I want to do something more in me. And here's what I know about us Aussies. 80% of Australians suffer depression at one point or another. And we can hide it behind our smiles, but it's true. And here's what I know. Whatever's happening in you will translate around about you. Well, he got to 67 and he'd been in radio all those years, and they're pretty ruthless. He walked into work to do the program and they said, Mike, we're sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. In radio, there's no warning. You don't get a week's notice. You're just fired. Well, I was about to come on air and they said, Chris, sorry, you're going to have to do the program on your own because Mike's not with you today. I said, oh, what's wrong? He said, well, we've had to let him go. And I went, oh my goodness. So I did the program. I rang him up afterward. He was sobbing his eyes out, 67-year-old man, crying his eyes out. He said, Chris, can I talk to you later? I did. Long story short, we talked a couple of times. He said to me, you changed my life. I said, what do you mean? He said, all those years, he said, but you said one thing. When was the last time I did something for the first time? He said, I want to start a radio station. My own. I said, well, how are you all going to do that? You're retired. He said, I'm not going to retire. Something happened in him. He said, I don't have the money. I thought, oh no, I know where this is going. He said, no, I want to start a micro station where I live in Devonport. I said, all right, go ahead, go do it. It'd be great. He said, Chris, you didn't listening. I don't have the money. So we talked a little bit longer. We came to an arrangement, and that was if I gave him the money, he would give me advertising at no cost forever. Well, what ended up happening was not only did he start that station, but he ended up affiliating his station with all the other micro stations from Auckland all the way down to Invercargill. And it became, within 12 months, the largest radio station in New Zealand. When was the last time you did something for the first time? How extraordinary. You see, it's not what happens to you, it's what happens through you. And sometimes you've got to do something today that you won't see the fruit of. You know, it's not what you do, it's what you set in motion. Long after we're no longer here, what you do in this organisation has to live beyond you. Does that make sense?
And it does, actually. Chris,
it does. So you're planting a seed. What about those that came before you?
Yeah. Well, they did too. So we raised funds to put kids through school, and it's a continuous thing, isn't it? So all those seeds that we plant and have to continually raise funds to water, I mean, we see them grow.
And there are times you're in your 5 years,
yep,
and you've got to work at a project and work at it, and you don't let the naysayers be the decision makers. There will always be a naysayer. Can't be done, shouldn't be done. They'll tell you why. There's a 67-year-old man who started a radio station after being fired. But of course, some people give up hope, don't they? They hear bad news today, they give up hope. Hope is the great activator. Hope means this, because, you might go, well, I hope so. No, that's not what hope means. Hope means a confident, eager expectation of good. It's a powerful word. And only those with hope will plant a seed. I wrote an article on optimism and pessimism more than 25 years ago. I submitted what I'm about to read to you to a number of psychologists and practitioners, health centres. It's now published and considered the definition of these two words. So let me read it out to you. And what I'd like you to do just for a moment, you don't need to tell the person beside you what you are, but you're going to discover more about who you are, because we got to get honest. I don't know if the best years are ahead for you, but I know that we have today. And today matters. Because what I do today, if I do it well, I'm going to thank myself tomorrow. Is that all right to say? You good? All right. A pessimist. Think about this. Now, just decide who you are for a moment. A pessimistic person will become caught up in the problem and expect a negative outcome. And so outcomes are always a matter of defeat. You met those sort of people? Doesn't matter how good the project was or what you did, you cooked a meal, but it just wasn't good enough. Right? They're just, nothing is good enough. No matter what the outcome, they will never be satisfied. You know, you look at the people you hang around, that's the direction you're going. You hang around a person like this, you're going to be going in a direction you don't want to go. And failure will become a lifestyle rather than an opportunity to learn. In Australia today, 80% of people will suffer depression at one point or another on varying degrees. Anxiety is right up there. We have more health practitioners, more psychologists. Headspace on the Gold Coast now operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for ages 13 to 25. I was talking to them a couple of years ago and they said, you know, when we started, we were just part-time. Said, now we can't cope. We have all of this help. And suicide is one of now the number one killers in Australia. It's crazy. So let's keep our smile on, but let's be realistic. Am I a pessimist? Am I? Let's have a look at an optimist. You might be surprised. An optimist is not a plastic fantastic, one of those Yankee speakers that just talk like, you know, they've never bought a loaf of bread. An optimist is a totally different type of breed. An optimist will become caught up in solutions and they look for outcomes. They are outcome orientated. They are conscious of their own ability. They are conscious of their own ability and they do what they can do to better their own situation. Did you hear those words? They do what they can do. If you did all you could possibly do in just one day, you'd literally surprise yourself. They do what they can do. An optimistic person is very practical. That goes against their common understanding of being an optimist. They're very practical. And believes in hope, not because it happens on its own, but rather it becomes a way of life. Their thought life is upbeat, but never over the top. They are solution orientated. They are fixed on reaching their goals, no matter how small. Plant a small seed. They have learned that some things come to those who wait, and other things cannot wait to happen. They've learned most of all to be in control of their own thought life and find solutions rather than finding defeat. Hope is the great activator. You know, the student this year who doesn't do too well without hope would just say, what's the point? The couple without hope would just throw in the towel. Hope means a confident, eager expectation of good, and God knows in our country right now we need a little bit of hope. If you only see what's happening in the ground for the seed, but you just got to let it go. You just got to let that thing grow. But we've got to plant it. I wonder what you can talk about today. I wonder what seeds you can plant today. Around the turn of the century, in not this century, but the last one, in a town called Beaumont, Texas, a farmer was running out of money. Got together with his family and he said, I think we're going to have to sell the farm. And so they were preparing to do that. Around about that same time, an oil company came to him and said, sir, we think there could be oil in your land. And if we were to strike oil, we'll give you a royalty off every barrel that we extract. We'll hit a great deal to gain and absolutely nothing to lose. So he said, let's go for it. And back in the day, the derricks were made of wood. The greater amount of oil, the greater the destruction to the derricks. Well, not only did they drill for oil, but there were more than 5,000 barrels came out before they could cap the oil. The fellow was an instant millionaire. Or was he? The oil was already there. The oil was already in the ground. You know, I want to encourage you. We had a bit of fun in the beginning that we're all over the voting age. I don't think you're ever too old to live. I don't think you're ever too old to make a difference. I don't think you're ever too old to plant a seed in that person that's sitting beside you. I love the words of Prager, who said, happiness is an obligation. When I heard those words, I thought, well, no, it's not an obligation. And the more I listened to him, the more I realised it is an obligation. Talk to that person who was raised in a family that were just grumpy and hostile and horrible to them. They would have wished their parents would have at least been part-time happy. Go to work tomorrow or today and sit beside a person that's just ticked off all day. You would have wished they'd thought about you. What about this person beside you right now? You would have hoped that you're having lunch and a cup of coffee with somebody that just might put a smile on their face. Happiness is an obligation because we affect one another. You affect one another. You affect the relationships that you have. And how you're going to affect them for good is to plant a seed today that you'll thank yourself for tomorrow. Is that okay? You're getting something out of this? Because I'm going to come bring it to a close soon. I was warned not to speak for 3 hours. Well, actually, they said you could speak for 3 hours, but we leave here pretty soon after.
You've got to have lunch, you know.
What's in my hand that I can plant? What's in my hand? What have I got? What's in my heart that I can sow? And what's in my mind that I can offer? We've got to teach the next generation what to do. Because God knows I'm still trying to work them out. You got to teach them. We received a beautiful... Who remembers what a tea cozy is? Yeah. Talk to anyone under 30, they'll go, what? An elderly lady knitted us a tea cozy. There's a skill that's gone. Now I've got to go buy the teapot. You're exactly right. But I'll tell you something. There's a skill that's been lost. You go to anybody under 30 and say, could you knit me a tea cozy? They'll say, we've got two problems. I don't know what a tea cozy is and I don't know how to knit. Is there a problem with teaching young people this? Plant a seed. Show them what you've learned. Because what you do today is going to echo into the next generation. Give a little today, reap a little tomorrow. Am I in my 5 years? Or am I in my 5 weeks? Wherever you are right now in your relationships, in your finances, in this organisation, no matter what is going on, where are you today? You working at something that you've been working hard at for year after year after year. You're suffering anxiety or depression. Things are going right, things are going wrong. Plant a seed. Do something you've never done before. And you'll get something you never had before. Do something for the first time. The first time always matters. I remember the first time I got on a roller coaster was at Dream World. I'd never been on one before. You know what? I didn't want to get on one at all. I just didn't trust it. I'd seen some horror flick when I was a kid and the roller coaster went flying off. I said, I'm not getting on that thing. But these things affect you. Well, I did get on that, and you know what? At the end of it, I said, let's get on again. The first time, the first kiss, the first job, the first time you got a job, the first time you got fired, whatever it might have been. The first time you got married, because there are 3 marriages these days. One coming, one going, and one staying. There's all different things going on. But you'll always remember the first time. Do something for the first time. Do it for the first time. Do it today. If you haven't sent an email ever before, do it today. If you haven't taught somebody something that only you know, do it today. Because you'll thank yourself for tomorrow. And in closing, let me read this. Because this has affected my life. In the consideration of the legacy that I leave, consider, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Consider for a moment what you can do today to change your tomorrow. And don't give up hope. Take hold of hope. Lay hold of hope. Because you can make a difference. There's so much more I could say on this subject. But let me read this out to you. And this is you. And this is me. This is you. This is you over there. Here we go. An old man going down a lone highway came at the evening cold and grey to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim, the sullen stream held no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, "You're wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending of day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you this bridge at the even tide?" The builder lifted his old grey head. "Good friend." Oh my goodness, this touches me. "In the path I have come," he said, "there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way, this chasm that has been naught to me. To that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him." Thanks for having me.